Good morning and welcome to another hazy shade of winter Monday at Site B. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. We are walking to the store, something I can't do. Someday I gotta let that go. It's been over a year. Nah. Ooh, cool looking spider web. Oh, B, you're trapped in the spider web. That's not good. Oh well. What's going on? Okay, so there's two things I could talk about. One thing is, of course, the whole what's going on with Secret Lair, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons of Stormwick Isle, because that seems to be a topic that refuses to die. The other thing I could talk about is the hints that Wizards of the Coast just dropped about what we can maybe expect from the December release and from the 2024 product, but I'm waiting to the live stream at the end of the month happens and Wizards makes the official announcements to discuss either of those. So instead we're going to do something I said we were going to talk about, and that's modules and railroading and Westmarch and the fine art of adventure mashing. I am a huge fan of adventure mashing. It is something I have done pretty much as long as I have been running in one form or another, whether it's fantasy, science fiction, superheroes, horror. I would say every game that I've run that lasted longer than 1 or 2 sessions, I have mashed together multiple sources to create a story. And why do I do this? Because one, I like to cherry pick ideas that I think are cool and then interpret them into the adventure. And there's, always several products that have similar themes. And two, on the off chance I'm running something that somebody at my table has been through, I can change it up enough that I can still throw things at them that they weren't expecting. And three, the Westmarch style, just especially as we've talked about in today's gaming environment, is just, it's a better blueprint for how to run right now. So what do I mean by adventure mashup, and what do I mean by a module is not instructions, it's not a blueprint, it's a framework to tell the story of the adventure within, and how you as a DM need to give yourself permission for the creativity to spin off ideas in case the things don't go different ways, in case the players make choices you weren't prepared for, in case someone doesn't show up, in case somebody at the table has read the reviews like I have or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways you could use this idea. Ooh, doggo. Ooh, doggy. Howdy. Howdy. Okay, so adventure mashup when running a module. Let's take an easy one. Storm King's Thunder. Now, Storm King's Thunder is based upon the original Against the Giants, G1, G2, G3, and then at the end of Storm King's Thunder, they added some extra stuff instead of to replace the Dro. In G1, G2, G3, it was Giant, 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 and Dro. And then that led us to Descent to the Depths of the Earth, Queen of the Demoid Pits stuff. So Storm King's Thunder rewrites Against the Giants and tells it in a brand new way. So that's the module we're going to start with, okay? Very linear, straightforward, like a module, railroad. I could just read it and run it as written. But there is so much available to me that it behooves me to look at other products that have a similar theme and see if I can mash them together with Storm King's Thunder to tell a new version of the same adventure and open up the door for the possibilities of them doing something the module doesn't count for. If somebody's already read that module or been through it, and most importantly, what do I do if somebody doesn't show up? And what I do is have separate adventures ready to go, and also have backup characters ready to go. You know, I've said how the 6-8 year Freeport campaign also spun off 2 other campaigns based upon days when players didn't show up, and we started other things, and those became separate campaigns that we were always running on the days when so-and-so wasn't there. So, okay, Storm King's Thunder. So the first thing we could mash together with Storm King's Thunder is Paizo's Giant Slayer Adventure Path. Because Paizo's Giant Slayer Adventure Path is basically also an homage, there I said it right, trow, whatever, again, to G1, G2, and G3. So now we have 2 adventures telling the same basic story, but slightly different. Giant Slayer gives us some new, different things we can add to Storm King's Thunder. It gives us a different take that I really liked on the ice giants and the almost very Shakespearean ice giant castle. It adds in new ideas that you could mesh together, and it opens up more things, because between the 2 of them you have enough side things going on to spin off for days when they don't want to go to site A and instead. So now I'm mashing together through 2 adventures, but why don't we mash together a 3rd adventure, or even a 4th and a 5th? I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of products out there that are giant themed. So we could mash all those together to make the campaign last longer, to give more options, to have side quests available and other things of interest in case there's, you know, what they go off on a tangent. You're prepared for that. You have some stuff ready, sitting in the corner, you know, and let's say, as we're going to keep using as an example, somebody doesn't show up. Well, okay, you've got 2 players there and 2 players that haven't showed up. Here's a plethora of ideas. So you could A, have those characters do something on a side quest, B, have them make backup characters and do something else, because now you've mashed together at least 2 adventures. But I'm going to go one further, because when I ran Storm King's Thunder, I mashed together Storm King's Thunder, the Giant Slayer Adventure Path from Paizo, and a one-shot adventure called The Dragon's Demand, also from Paizo. And I set the Dragon's Demand and the first module of the Giant Slayer Adventure Path in the same town. I set both at about the same time. Now, I've run the Dragon's Demand separately and mashed it together with other adventures, but I wanted to run it again, and I wanted to incorporate some of the ideas from the Dragon's Demand into the Giants. So what I basically did is replace a few things. Instead of it being dragons, it fed into the Giants. It fed into the idea that something's going on with the Giants, and somebody is taking advantage of that to terrorize this town. Now we add to that the starting adventure of Giant Slayer, which goes very much into the town, into the culture of the town, and then starts as a murder mystery and spins off into a fetch quest that spins off into the beginning of Giant Slayer. So combine those, plus you add into that the final chunk of that, which is the first part of Storm King's Thunder, the Hill Giant Fort. So you've got 3 things going on by mashing together those 3 adventures. So bam, Storm King's Thunder. We've got Hill Giants. We know they're the first end boss of the first chunk. Hill Giants, or gathering together. They've got this fort. They're mustering troops. They're making noise. Bam, Dragon's Demand. I've talked about Dragon's Demand, and it's a very interesting module, but without going too deep into Dragon's Demand, we'll just use the basic premise of the beginning of Dragon's Demand, which is bad guys taking advantage of the town having a reputation of being attacked in the past to make them think they're going to be attacked again, and then trying to bamboozle them using this idea that they're going to be attacked again. Now, in the Dragon's Demand, it's a dragon. The town had a history of being attacked by a dragon. Bad guys show up and trying to convince the town that the dragon is going to attack again, and then tries to get the town to give them money and stuff to prevent the dragon from attacking. Thus the title. The dragon demands a ransom or it will attack. Okay, so just switch that to giants. And we switch that to the idea that the giants are causing a lot of ruckus. Other monsters are being misplaced. Because of the giants, these monsters know that this town has a history. So they are now trying to bamboozle this town to get some easy money. Now we add to that the very beginning of the Giant Slayer series, which is basically this town has a history of being attacked by giants, and it's been ingrained into the folklore of this town. A murder happens. The player characters have to solve the murder, and in solving the murder, they discover that these folks, these bad guys who have come down from the mountain, are behind the murder because the person they murdered was onto them and they didn't want to be discovered, and that they were preparing the town for the invasion. And of course, I just had to switch things around. He was murdered because he discovered that what they were doing. And anyway, so Giant Slayer starts with a murder mystery in this town. In the process of solving the murder, you discover that the giants have sent agents into the town to prepare it for the invasion. In Storm King's Thunder and Dragon Demands, we have a town. The town has a history. The town's being blackmailed because the bad guys know the town has a history. An NPC gets killed because he discovers what's going on. The player characters investigate, and in investigating, they discover that these bad guys are blackmailing the town, and it's a lie. But they also discover that giants are on the move. They follow the breadcrumbs, and every road they take leads them to the Hill Giant Fort and their first major encounter in the end of chapter 1. But there's enough other stuff going on that I could have run, and I did run side quests for the days that players couldn't come. I could have run a backup campaign, have them make extra characters and, you know, investigate the murder, investigate what the giants are up to, follow up on these clues about the blackmail and the town's history, go into the mines where the threat seems to be coming from. There was enough sandboxy stuff there by mashing together those 3 modules that I could tell a complete 2-month-long story that eventually all roads lead to the end of the first half, which is, you know, you deal with the hill giants, and at the end of the hill giants you spin off to deal with the next one, which is the frost giants. And again, with doing that, I combined Storm King's Thunder, Giant Slayer, and then a whole separate adventure that was vaguely frost giant related. And again, I told the story of, and it had a very Shakespearean theme to it. So basically the whole situation that was going on with the frost giants was Hamlet. So I mashed together Hamlet with the story of Storm King's Thunder, with the story of Giant Slayer, added in a frost giant lich, added in, of course, the famous story of Roger and the Fireball, which is a whole separate story. But, you know, if you haven't heard Roger and the Fireball, it's my best D&D story. And that was like another 2 months. And again, there was enough side stuff, so on the days certain players couldn't show up, we had side quests they could do, we had backup characters they could run, we had a whole separate sub plot line about a bridge and defending the bridge from giants that had dynamite, and they had to defend the bridge for like 2 games, and that was a pretty epic. And then we had them discovering an old basically monorail that the bad guys were using to transport materials, and that gave them separate stuff to do on the nights when so and so didn't show up. And that stretched out what could have been a 20-30 minute 1 game session into 2 months, because I mashed together Hamlet, Storm King's Thunder, and Giant Slayer, and then had some just extra stuff that I based upon stuff they said. So that's how you mash together a module. Now, in relation to the module I'm currently going through, which is very railroad, but there's enough going on that if the DM had the wherewithal, he could spin off separate stories for the days when where 2 players didn't show up. He could have had backup characters ready to go. In fact, the module apparently suggests using the rival adventurers as backup characters in case somebody doesn't show up, or if you need to do a side quest. So it's in there, apparently, from what I've now read. So there's 2 options, and there's enough going on from the beginning of Call of the Netherdeep up to the point where we reached that there are separate stories you could have told that had nothing to do with the main plot of Call of the Netherdeep that could have kept those players involved for the day when, the DM says, oh, I can't run because so-and-so isn't here. Instead, the DM should say, okay, I'm going to run something else, set in the same timeline, set in the same place, because there's enough going on that a whole separate set of things could be investigated. So you don't have to worry about the main plot while so-and-so isn't here. Or he could have said, hey, today you're going to run the backup characters and you're going to do stuff with them. Or he's even, since it's apparently written in the module, you could have also said, hey, you're going to run the pre-generated characters from the rival adventuring group, and they're going to do stuff, and whatever they do affects the adventure going further. So for that one shot, you're doing something that's going to fuck up the main characters, including your own character, which I think would be just fun. But whatever. So that's my take on adventure mashup. And basically, to break it down, again, the module is not an instruction booklet. It's a framework. That framework has a basic story, uppity giants. But within that framework, there's a lot going on that you could spin off with. And then there's a lot more going on if you start to mash together other adventures with that. So yeah, there's a whole bunch going on. Every time I walk to this market, I forget how far it is. Anyways, that's it. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you want to hear more about adventure mashups or the famous Against the Giants campaign, which was a spin-off from my Freeport campaign, by the way. Or if you want to hear the Roger and the Fireball story yet again, let me know. Till then, I've been the OG GM on an epic quest to get food. Please subscribe to my vlog. I'll talk to you later.